Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers. Connecting through Zoom is the way to go. So let's dive right in. It's Boomer Zoomers.
Folks, welcome back to our Boomer Zoomer segment, which is the way we close out every week. It's the last segment of our last show on Thursdays. As you know, we don't do Friday shows, and there's no better way to spend our last episode than with our beloved seniors down there at the Charlestown Senior Center, the Boomer Zoomers. Bill, Isabella, welcome back. Who is with you today?
Well, to my immediate left is the lovely Louise Weaver. And to her left is the not so lovely Ken McCourt. So happy to have both of them here.
But highly intelligent.
The highly, did I forget to say that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. And all right. Now, first of all, if it's appropriate, let me wish you all a happy Easter or a happy Passover.
You too, yeah.
Will you each be hosting families at your home this holiday, Bill?
We are not. We're going out. So
Okay, Louise.
I'm visiting. My sister is hosting.
Okay, Ken.
All right, I have an extended family that the widow of my best friend, her son and daughter, and I've always been Uncle Kenny to them. They're coming down, one from Maine with her kids and the other from Cranston with his identical twins. They're all right.
Very cool. Well, look, a blessed Easter weekend and Passover to
And
you
let
and to
me-
our.
thank you. And let me mention that we're eternally grateful that Ken does not have an identical twin. So
Gosh.
just
Boy, this is
Brother.
Get Ken today. All right. Now, I know in prior weeks, you guys have talked about both of the main topics we're going to bring up today,
Yeah.
Guide to Safer Schools and the transgender issue, which seems to be dominating everything. Bill, you sent me this, hold on, let me cancel that. You sent me this image of
Yeah.
a report. We can go through it if you'd like, but this is a Guide to Safer Schools from Popular Mechanics. What is this? Set it up for us, Bill.
Yeah, Popular Mechanics. I mean, I get the article. I get the magazine for Centerfold. No, I get the magazine because it's got a lot of stuff that I'm interested in. I'm interested in mechanical things, but they have an awful lot of articles that are not necessarily related to something mechanical, and this is one of them. This is an article from September of 2018, shortly after a shooting in another school, and I think it's an outstanding article. And they review several items of which I think are very important that we can all do with not a ton of money, with I think just some smart placement of locked doors, magnetic doors, and so forth, which I know for a fact we have not done in Rhode Island. And what are we waiting for? Why is the whole country waiting for this? Why are we not spending money to protect our children in our schools, yet we're sending tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars offshore? It doesn't make sense to me.
All right, great questions Bill asked. Louise, I know your group talked about this last week. What was the consensus? We know the left just wants to focus on removing guns, but they don't seem to want to put much effort or money into securing our schools. What was the consensus of the group, Louise, in answer to some of the questions Bill asked?
Well, I think we listened to everything very respectfully. We agreed with some of the things. Well, actually, most of the things could be done. Some very easy, some very difficult. I, on the other hand, and maybe it's just because I was a flight attendant in 1967 onward, and I watched the entire hardening of the airline industry as with the takeover of the airplanes.
Yeah.
And I am of the opinion, maybe because of that, that I would just go full force. My personal opinion is that we have doors that only open outward, and that little place between when the students enter and there's a locked area and then they go through another set of doors. And it's just my opinion, I would have a command post bulletproof where somebody is scanning everything. And people will say, oh, that's too much like a prison or too much like, well, as far as I'm concerned, when you're dealing with people that are criminal types, then you have to act accordingly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we'll end up. I think we're going back and forth, and that's just my personal opinion.
Ken, another,
I'm sorry.
that's all right. Ken, I want to move on to Ken. Ken, another way to state that, I think, is to protect against sick people with guns. You need to add more security, mechanical things like Louise just said and Bill asked about, and you might even need to add more guns like with an armed guard. Ken, what is your opinion, A, and what was the consensus of your group?
Well, rather than the consensus, I'd like to talk about my own experience that I started teaching in private high schools. This one school that I taught at in New Jersey, we installed cameras over both the entrances and the exits to the school. One night, a bunch of criminals, let's say, they happen to have been students, they broke into our computer lab and emptied all of our computers. They were caught on screen. We notified the local police. They arrested them.
So,
Of course,
That's
they
a
were juvenile. We couldn't charge them with full robbery and stuff. But we
but
got
still,
the
good
trespass.
security devices can prevent or catch after the fact. Bill, it's not that unusual. I mean, those are mechanical devices, I guess, in a
Right,
way,
yeah, exactly.
cameras and magnetic doors. So I guess it would kind of be a natural for it to appear in Popular Mechanics. What are your thoughts on the issue, Bill?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I think that we get lax all the time, and I think you're right. Your comment earlier on about the focus being on the gun and occasionally the shooter, but we completely seem to defer anything to do with the building itself, hardening of the building. We don't want to turn these places into prisons. Let me be clear. We want the kids to feel comfortable, but doing something like making sure that everybody on staff knows that when the bell rings, the doors close and lock, and you don't prop them open with a brick or something like that. So this is just an opportunity. How about something as simple as pass doors with a push button on the inside, so the teacher doesn't have to come with a key to lock the door. That's something very, very simple. And so many of these other things, boards in front of the entrance to the school, so to stop somebody from crashing through with a vehicle. That's simple. That's not terribly expensive.
I agree. Now, I want to take you guys back to think of your high school days. Now, I went to kind of a suburban high school, Cranston East. My wife grew up, went to Foster Pontigansett High School, much more rural country kind of. She remembers the days, and Ken, maybe with your camouflage hat, kids would roll up to school with their pickup trucks and their hunting guns in the back, and there were never any problems. Guns weren't the problem a long time ago, but there seemed to be more of a willingness for certain people to use weapons to harm others. Do you guys have any recollections of your high school days back then? Whoever wants to weigh in. Go ahead, Louise.
Great.
I do. I went to Rogers High School, which was in Newport, and it was a city school. And my cousin was on the girls' rifle team. I mean, we had things like that, and it was fine. I mean, the school was not hardened in any way. Students arrived on time. I don't recall any problem in the 4 years that I was there in a city school. And like I said, we had ROTC. We had guns on campus, and there was never
guns have always been around our society, our schools. It's only recently that we have sick people willing to use them. Ken, with that camouflage hat on, do you have a similar story?
Well, part of my career was teaching in colleges. That there was one college in New Jersey, Bergen Community College, northern part of Jersey, that our governor at the time was in a high-speed car accident. He was out of action for 6 months, and we had acting Governor Cody was taking over the situation. There's Martha in the background.
Hi, Martha.
And one of the things he did was he called all the schools together, all the colleges together. This was shortly after Columbine. And he said, I want presence on each campus to be able to return fire. So that he worked out an arrangement where through the course of the day and into the evening, the school went into the evening, that he had people from a SWAT team, the local emergency report responders, local police departments, that they rotated throughout the course of the day so that there was, and state police, state troopers, I love those Smokey Bear hats, state troopers on campus at all times. We had three main buildings, so a fairly large campus. But I got to tell you, when I pulled up, parked my car, and walked on campus, I was relieved, happy to be able to see somebody standing there with a gun on his hip, to know that this person was trained and would be able to, as the acting governor said, return fire.
I grew up in the city. I went to LaSalle Academy for 4 years. Back then it was all boys. It was a lot different than it is today. We didn't get into fist fights. As a matter of fact, there was a fairly routine thing going on. But the big difference is, and we've been tiptoeing all around this, the big thing is, what is it about today's student? What is it about today's youth that allows them to rationalize some kind of murder and suicide? Because most of these cases, there's suicide involved with it too. Matter of fact,
You're exactly right. You're exactly right, Bill.
And for the last four, by the way, the last four school shootings have been with a transgender person. We are not looking at the mental health issue. Back in the 80s, when Ronald Reagan was around, we had the first psychiatric community offensive against the government. And what did Reagan do? He released all the people out of the IMHs and all the other institutions. We've got something like that going on now. The Psychiatric Society seems to be backing these these poor kids that are 11, 12-year-olds. They're just a little confused.
Right. So let's hold on. Let me just set the stage, and I want to pivot a little more formally to that. So
Good.
we've been discussing on my show for the past week that we're actually teaching kids to become emotionally unstable in curricula in schools. The lethality of guns hasn't changed in decades, and since we were young, what has changed is the mental instability of many students, and I think that's being systematized. Okay, now let's go, because I know that's the second issue, Bill, you want to bring up, was this transgender issue, this transgenderism. And when I say ism, it's become a movement. It's almost become cool, right? To be that, even and almost forced, almost like you're not accepted if you're not transgender or openly supporting that false reality. Bill, what did your group talk about in recent weeks about the transgender issue?
Well, we identified the new phobia as transphobia. And that's a new word we can add to our lexicon now. Unfortunately, we're treating this as a social ill. And if you're against it, you're somehow transphobic, which means you're racist, you're something wrong with you. When in fact, I find it hard to believe that we can rationalize, the medical community, psychiatric community at large, can rationalize a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, younger, older child into thinking that they're in the wrong body. Something is wrong with them mentally. And we need to get to the heart of that. And I'm not a psychiatrist, nor am I a doctor, but I can see clearly. And I don't know why they can't see that.
All right, Louise, let me ask you about this way. People for millennial have been confused about a lot of things growing up, probably even their gender, whether it's homosexuality, now it's transgender. Everybody has their rights. Everybody should be treated with respect. Nobody should lose their rights under the law, but certainly nobody should get special rights. While certainly Bill is right that these kids are probably emotionally disturbed, it's my claim that teachers, school officials, the media, education officials at the state level who are pushing this are even more sick than the kids. I believe this is being institutionalized, that it's not just something accidentally happening to kids. It's being institutionalized. What do you think, Louise Weaver?
I think that you are 100% correct, because when my granddaughter was in school, and she's 19 now, she was maybe 13 or whatever, and there was this little fellow interested in asking her out. But he said, I'm not sure if I'm bi or not. Okay, what 13-year-old has to start, thinking what gender they are? I think there's also a place, I don't know where they're getting, I'll use the word radicalized, but there's got to be a place where there's incoming information consistently about this is proper. And then there there's backing of it, of saying that it's okay, and that might be the school system. But there's definitely something that is perpetuating that this is a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. And like I say, mental illness is a broad spectrum. It can be situational or it can be whacked off the wall.
Yeah.
And I think somehow these people are being guided or misguided.
I agree. Ken, when I see on YouTube or somewhere on the news, a youth, a minor going through transition, parts of their bodies cut off, taking hormones, whatever. I have nothing but sympathy, empathy, whatever you want to call it, compassion for that person. What gets me mad is when I see that person, I say, who's behind that? What parent, what teacher, what other adult has foisted this evil upon that young person and confuse them? How do you see it, Ken?
I have a little different take on things here, that regardless of whether it's talking about homosexuality, male, female, whether it's transgender, whether it's these drag queen readings at the library, my concern is that these people who are such advocates for this type of behavior are out there recruiting for themselves. And it's not just the schools and the education systems or the parents, but that they are actively out there in the communities, even in their protest types of things, or their parties, or their parades that they have. That, to me, it's an active form of recruiting to get more people involved.
Bill, would you call it grooming?
I would absolutely call it grooming. As a matter of fact, it's not only supporting. I think it's. I think Lou, you hit on it pretty clearly. It's too much information for one. I think it's too much information for children who are not ready to consume that amount of information. And we call grooming. I think it's dividing us, and I think that's the answer to it all. I'm a big Marxist supporter. I don't support Marxism, but I support the notion that Marxism defeats us by dividing us. And this is just another way to divide us. So the children with mom and dad sitting around the dinner table that once a week they have a meal. Now they're talking about transgenderism. Oh, mom, you don't understand. Oh, dad, you don't understand.
Right.
This is dividing us even further. And this is purely intentional on the part of the progressive left. Just think about Marxism and what it's all about. We know what it's all about. This is a danger. And let me point something out, Mark.
Yeah, it's playing one group of people against another group of people. That's what it is.
Yeah. And that's exactly what they do. And what discourages me the most is when I see a drag queen show or something like that, something off color, and I see mothers bringing in their children with the hand and encouraging their children to normalize this behavior. This is absolutely.
Yeah. I don't say, hey, look at this crazy drag queen person. I say, look at this crazy parent for bringing their kids there.
Exactly. If you've been living in Rhode Island a long time, you remember the El Morocco Club up in Johnston. That's where those shows went, and they were meant for entertainment. And you went there, you had dinner, and had laughs, but not to bring a 5-year-old to it. Come on, what are we doing?
All right, folks, time flies fast. We've gone over our limit, but it's great fun. Just very quick, Bill, what's on your agenda for today's meeting coming up in a little while?
Today's first of the month free for all, so they bring in subjects. I have usually a list, but it'll
Free
be
for
up
all day. All right.
We're going to be talking about taxes and the taxes increases in Charlestown, the Charahoe complex. So we'll be talking.
Can we say a quick goodbye to all your adoring fans out there in the dugout audience?
Goodbye, everyone, and thank you for having us, Mike.
Ken, final word to you.
Hang 10.
All right, hang 10.
Mike,
Bill,
thank you
thanks as always for what
Thank
you
you.
do, not only in your community, but for helping to bring some of your Boomer Zoomers to our In the Dugout broadcast. Thank you very much. And to
Lot of
you,
fun.
our audience, look, it's our last broadcast of the week. Have a blessed Easter weekend, blessed Passover. Be safe, whatever it is you're doing. I'm going to be on the road taking a drive down to the Southeast United States. So say a prayer for safe travels for us. And Boomer Zoomers, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. We're in the dugout. Mike Stenhouse out. See you next game.